Hello and welcome back to Beer Necessities. For a change, I'm in England and I'm driving through the Charnwood Forest in Leicestershire. And why would I be doing that? Well, somewhere here is a Roman Catholic monastery, still functioning. And you might be wondering what the hell has that got to do with this channel, but let's just keep going and we'll find out in a second. All right, so he's got to be around it somewhere, if my calculations are correct. Sign for monastery. I feel that we're in the right place. So, let's just turn in. Now this feels nice and monastic, doesn't it? Look at this. Beautiful. And I think behind these trees is where the Abbey is. So anyway, this is a beer and brewery review tourism channel. Why on earth would we be coming to a monastery in Leicestershire, out in the woods in Leicestershire? Here it is, up there. Well, good morning and welcome to the Abbey of Mount St Bernard. Mount St Bernard here in the Leicestershire countryside. Why would I come here? Why would I come to a Roman Catholic monastery? And it is still a functional Roman Catholic monastery. I just saw some monks going about their business before. Why would I come here? Well, of course, it's for beer, isn't it? It's for beer. The land on which this Abbey was built, and this Abbey was formed in, I think, 1835. The land on which this was formed is Tynt Meadow, so this little hill area, Tynt Meadow. And Tynt Meadow is the UK's only Trappist beer. So, yeah, the monks here, they oversee the brewing of the UK's only Trappist beer, Tynt Meadow, and you may have seen it in shops. So yeah, 1835. This monastery really was part of the sort of re-emergence of Catholicism in the UK. Henry VIII, during the 16th century, dissolved all the Catholic monasteries as he switched the UK from Catholicism to Protestantism. Get my words out there. And, you know, monasteries were a thing of the past, they were plundered and whatnot. But Tudor dynasty over, Catholicism modestly started to grow again. So we have got a few abbeys, monasteries around the UK. So yeah, 1835, this was built here. Now, as with so many of these monasteries, Cistercian monasteries, the way of life is sustained through hard manual labour. So there were farmers here. Dairy farmers, so that's how they covered the overheads, selling their produce, the dairy produce. But got to 2013 and they realised that was no longer going to be doable. It was no longer sustainable. Supermarkets, they're cutting everybody out of that game. So desperate times call for desperate measures. But of course, so many of the other Cistercian monasteries, but particularly those in Belgium, they turned their hand to beer long ago. And they did actually used to make beer here, table beer, for obviously their meal times and also for guests. That was a way of keeping water safe back in those days, because obviously when you're brewing it, you boil it and you add hops, which is a preservative, so it makes it safe to drink. So they have made it here in the past. But there was a realisation that that could be quite profitable, certainly in terms of being able to maintain the overheads of running such a place. So they turned to the expertise of other such monasteries around Belgium and whatnot. And between 2013 and 2017, they perfected what was going to be Tynt Meadow beer. And 2018 it went to market, I think around the summertime, July maybe, and later that year it was awarded the ATP, which is the Authentic Trappist Product License. So yeah, it's the UK's only Trappist beer, and I'm excited to go and have a look around. But we talk about Trappist beers, but what do we mean by that? In fact, what is a Trappist? I mean, this is a Trappist monastery, the Trappist monks. I don't know if they've got nuns here as well. They may have. But what do we mean by that? And why is it important? What does authentic Trappist product really mean? Let's go for a walk around the grounds and we'll have a chat about it.
Let us pray. God our Father, as day follows night, the birth of your Son hath kindled for us a light which will never fail. May it be our peace throughout this day and our strength. We ask you this, our God, to hear our prayer through Christ our Lord.
So, you've got the Abbey here, you've got the little shop which we'll go in a second here, and just to the side, actually it's on the back of the shop, so you've the Abbey there, the shop there, but here is I think what used to be the kitchen and whatnot, but you can see some of the infrastructure there. This is the brewery bit. Yeah, just all this bit on the side here, that's where the brewery is, and we'll go in and have a look at that in a second as well. Cool. Shop first. Well, did my bit and bought some bits and bobs in there. Beer, little sort of, not a snow globe, but all helps towards the running, the upkeep of this place. But anyway, that's what I meant to say before. I want to dispel the myth that the monks all take this vow of silence. I've just been speaking with one. And I forgot to mention that before. Very polite, sort of Central European accent, I'd say he had. He was putting some produce out on the shelves in the gift shop there. He said hello and excuse me and all that kind of stuff. So it is not a vow of silence. So anyway, I'm going to go and have another bit of a walk around, and then we'll go through those gates afterwards into the brewery.
In addition to the gift shop, there is now a brewery shop at the Abbey, selling Tynt Meadow and other Trappist beers.
So I know Douglas.
How's it going? It's nice and warm in here, isn't it?
A bit more than outside. A lot of the stuff like heating.
Yes.
We've got some.
Here you'll find Trappist beers that are hard to come by anywhere else in the UK, and some that are only available from the abbeys themselves, such as the legendary Westvleteren from Belgium.
So, this is where it all starts. As you're well aware, death of Christ, then in the 6th century AD, Saint Benedict set out a number of rules and principles for how he thought monastic people should live their lives, how they should serve the passion of the Christ. And it's based around simplicity, manual labour and simplicity. And that's where the Benedictine monks came from. Roll forward 500 years, as is always the case with mankind. A lot of the principles and values had started to be lost. The Benedictine order, or large parts of it, had fallen away from the original spirit of the principles and rules set out by Saint Benedict. So there was an offshoot, a new order, and that order was the Cistercian order. Again, all about getting back to the original principles set out by Saint Benedict. But again, history starts to repeat itself. Then you get to, I think it was the 17th century, and again, people start to feel like the Catholic Church had just fallen far too far away from the principles again. The principles. There was a greater emphasis on scholars, education, income generation, and again that led to discontent. So another order, another offshoot, this time an offshoot of the Cistercian order, another order was born, but at a monastery in France near Dijon, and the monastery was called La Trappe, not to be confused with today's Trappist beer, La Trappe, because that comes from Holland. But a new order was born, La Trappe, at La Trappe, and of course that's where the word Trappist comes from. La Trappe, Trappist. So Trappist monasteries, which are still part of the Cistercian order. Trappist monks, nuns. So that's where the whole Trappist order itself comes from. But what does it mean to be a Trappist beer, or any kind of Trappist product? Because it's not just beer. You've got cheeses, you've got wines, you've got bread, jams. So what does it take to be an actual Trappist product? Is it just being made by monks or nuns at a monastery? Nope. They set up the International Trappist Association to effectively regulate produce, to make sure that it is within the spirit of the Trappist order. So we'll go talk about that a little bit more at another part of these grounds. A few years ago, the International Trappist Association was set up to try and ensure that the monasteries and their produce were adhering to the principles and the standards associated with the Trappist ways. And as a result of that, as it stands right now, there are 11 monasteries in the world that sell authentic Trappist beers, and Tynt Meadow is one of them. Most of them are in Belgium, some in Holland, some in France, Spain, and they come and go. They do come and go, because as you can well imagine, the monastic population is in decline these days. So we've seen a number of monasteries dissolve, but some not effectively dissolve as such, but there's just not enough monks left there to run operations anymore. So the breweries keep going, like at Arkel, for example, and the one in Austria, whose name off the top of my head escapes me. So they're still going, but they're more commercial operations, not run by the monastery itself, or by monks, or under the supervision of monks. So it's a moving picture. As with Tynt Meadow, there may be other monasteries out there that start to take up the production of beer and therefore may add to that 11. I'm sure there are other monasteries that will dissolve in due course. It's a shame, because you've got to wonder whether 200 years from now, whether these things will still exist. You know, there's not a big queue of kids at school lining up to be monks or nuns, are there, these days? So will we have Trappist produce 200 years from now? Don't know, but we should certainly make the most of it in the meantime. So yeah, they come and go. But there are other Trappist monasteries that make authentic Trappist products, ATP. Don't necessarily make beer though. So you've got some that make breads, cheeses, jams, all that kind of good stuff. I think they probably make some of that stuff here as well. I'll have a look in the shop afterwards. But there are only 11 right now that are making what you would call Trappist beers. In order to there's a whole sort of suite of criteria, if you like, of what the International Trappist Association requires in order for it to be an authentic Trappist product, beer. But key ones are: the beer has to be made within the grounds of the Abbey, big tick here, and it has to be made by or under the close supervision of the monks. And that's what happens here. Here, the head brewer is not a monk. So when they started brewing in 2017, 2018, Tynt Meadow, they brought in an experienced brewer. But he has to operate under the close supervision of the monks. So yes, so this is Tynt Meadow. It's a nice cold January morning. It's taken me 3 hours to drive here. I was here in August, but my camera knackered up, so I lost all the footage. But yeah, it's good to be back. It's lovely and peaceful here, as you'd expect. And yeah, excited to go and have a look. Now, as with many monasteries, you don't get a place to... The shop sells the beer, right? So you can buy the beer in bottles to take away. There's no cafe or anything like that to sit and drink beer here. They don't want people getting sloshed on the monastery grounds, which you can kind of get. So what we'll do is I'll pick up a couple of bottles, take it back to my Zunfthaus and have a bit of a sample. I've had Tynt Meadow a few times anyway, but at least I'll be able to say I bought it from the Abbey and tasted it from source. So yeah, there's people doing Tai Chi or something like that over there.
This brewery is currently producing around 100,000 litres of beer a year, or 1,000 hectolitres. There is now this very expensive and sophisticated brewing system in place, supplied by Brautechnik Jo Albrecht from Munich. Here you'll see 2,500 litre kettles where the malt and local spring water are mashed at temperature to create the wort, which is then sent off to the Lautertum before returning to these kettles for the boil, where hops are also added. Subsequently, yeast is then added before sending for fermentation. Here are the 2 conical fermentation vessels, but with Tynt Meadow now looking to expand, there are plans to add more fermentation vessels very soon. It really is an impressive setup, and probably a far cry from what you might imagine a monastery brewery to look like. Initially, the head brewer was one of the monks. However, since 2022, the head brewer has been Ross Adams, who previously worked at a number of breweries around London, and to meet authentic Trappist product requirements, Ross must operate under the close supervision of the monks. Now we come to the bottling facility, where additional sugar and yeast are added into these tanks here before bottling, which will ensure the beer continues to condition once in the bottle, adding extra character and increasing the ABV. These machines bottle the beer before sending it over for packaging, where it's then transported to the next room, which is the heat chamber, where the bottles are stored at the perfect temperature so that the beer continues to condition, ready to be distributed all over the world. And in the chamber, they even keep a little stash for the monks themselves, although they do need to ask before they take. In here, you'll also find a cheeky stash of beers from some of the other Trappist breweries, such as Westvleteren in Belgium and Zunfthaus over in Holland.
Right, so these metal tanks here, this is basically how they extract the spring water from the ground, and that's what you use to make the beer. So I didn't appreciate that that's exactly what they were just before. But also I do need to correct myself slightly. So I said that this monastery is built on the Tynt Meadow. Actually, Tynt Meadow is the next field along, or pretty much the next field along. So, excuse me, I've just walked up a load of stairs. So the original settlement was on Tynt Meadow. The monastery as it stands today is not quite on Tynt Meadow. That's Tynt Meadow there, next to Tynt Meadow. Potato, Tynt Meadow. Yeah, so, and probably one other correction, but I don't know if it is a correction. I mentioned there are 11 Trappist beers. Lots more Trappist monasteries, abbeys, but 11 Trappist beers. Now I believe, I probably should know this, there are only 9 that meet the requirements for an authentic Trappist product, ATP. I think Mondecat and Cordania, Mondecat in France and Cordania in Spain don't, although they're Trappist beers, they don't meet the criteria for authentic Trappist beer. And the way to tell with an authentic Trappist, whether it's an authentic Trappist beer, is that little logo there, whether that comes into shot or not. Authentic Trappist product. So although they're made by, well, made within or on behalf of Trappist monasteries, they are not necessarily made by or under the supervision of Trappist monks, or perhaps are outsourced. I probably need to have a look at that a little bit more. They're not two monasteries that I've done too much research on in the past, but hey. So that brings to an end. Oh, there's the spring water pouring out. There you go. Nice. That brings to an end my little trip to the Abbey of Mount St Bernard and Tynt Meadow. It's been good, been really good, interesting. So what I'll do now is I will shoot back to North Wales and have a taste, and won't go into too much detail on that because you can buy this stuff from some of your more niche bottle shops and come to your own conclusions. Cheers. So I got back from the Abbey of Mount St Bernard yesterday, where Tynt Meadow is brewed. I left it until today to do a bit of a tasting. But before I get into that, you will have seen that I was in the fairly newly opened shop, beer, specifically the beer shop that they've got at the Abbey now. They've got their general sort of gift shop, souvenir shop, which did sell some beer, but now they've got a separate shop dedicated to beer. And they do sell authentic Trappist product beers from some of the other Trappist breweries, which is amazing. So while I was there, I picked up Zunfthaus from Holland, which I'm not going to have today. But I mean, you don't see this about very often, I tell you. But more so, they have the West Vleteren range from Flanders, Belgium. Now, you have to book an appointment. I've got a separate episode on that, so by all means have a look. You have to book an appointment at the monastery to go and pick up these beers, and they can't be resold or anything like that. But obviously these are all part of the International Trappist Association, so there's obviously a little deal where they can sell each other's beers, which is wonderful. So if you've never had a West Vleteren beer, which you probably haven't, unless you've been there and booked an appointment or been to the cafe across the way, then this is the place to go and get it. Now, they'll only let you buy 1 or 2 bottles. So you can buy each of the different types. So you're not limited to just one West Vleteren beer. You can buy the blonde, the 8, and the 12. I actually have a load of these already maturing in my basement because, as we'll talk about with Tynt Meadow in a second, these beers are delightful. There's no two ways about it. But if you leave them to age 2, 3, 4, 5 years, the flavours really start to mature, and it just becomes a whole different experience. Even though they tend to have a best before date on them, I'd kind of, with a Belgian ale or a Trappist beer, I tend to ignore that really. The more time that they have to develop in the bottle, the more flavours and the better experience you're going to get. West Vleteren Blonde, love a West Vleteren Blonde. I'm not going to have that today. The famous West Vleteren 12, I'm not going to have that today. Obviously, I'm going to be focusing on Tynt Meadow, so I'm going to have the Tynt Meadow ale. But I've also got their fairly new blonde ale as well, which I'll try. But I do want to compare the ale, the dark ale, against the West Vleteren 8, because they're both effectively. Although the West Vleteren 8 is a Belgian double. Exactly how much is quite dark in my Zunfthaus here. 8.6%, is it? Something like that. Let's get the phone out. I've got, in my advancing years, I have both bad eyesight and very grey hair. 8%. So it's a double. Now, obviously, Tynt Meadow is not a Belgian double because it's an English ale. It's 7.4, so yeah, 0.5% difference in ABV. And then you've got the blonde, which comes in at 5%. Tynt Meadow only uses English ingredients. So although it's a Trappist beer, it's going to have a lot of similarities, a lot of common ground with your Belgian doubles, but it will taste different. It will taste different because Tynt Meadow uses a range of malts, British hops, and their own British yeast. And it's Belgian yeasts that give a very distinct flavour. So I think that's where the main difference will be. And like you would expect, they add sugar in there as well to ramp up the ABV and maybe give a bit of sweetness as well. So anyway, let's talk and let's crack on. Actually, I mentioned yesterday I bought a little gift while I was at Tynt Meadow, which is this nice little 3D cube. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah. £16, but it's all going to a very good cause. So I'm going to open these bottles with my Chimay bottle opener, which I don't use very often. So we'll go for Tynt Meadow first. What we've got is the Tynt Meadow glass and the West Vleteren glass. So to compare, now Tynt Meadow, you see the sort of the 3 lines there. That's representative of the windows at the front of the Abbey. That's on the boxes, all that kind of good stuff. So, let us pour away. That is dark mahogany. So, there's your bottle. And here, it's not the easiest glass to hold actually, to be fair, but they've all got to have their own style, haven't they? That's the crack. Dark mahogany. Ooh. Right, I'm gonna pour the Westvleteren 8 as well while I'm at it, so we can do a direct side-by-side comparison. Yes, sure. Because they're doubles, I'd expect. Now, actually, this is a little bit more carbonated, the Westvleteren. It is more carbonated, so there's been a bit more activity in that bottle, it would seem. Do you know what, right? That's the feedback for Tynt Meadow. Nice looking glass, but it's it's a nice long stem on a lot of your Belgian chalices, like the Westvleteren one here, but this one has got a really stumpy chalice, so I'm going to have to sort of hold it like that, which is probably how they sort of drank at the Last Supper, maybe, I don't know. Right, so, very little difference between these, very little. No, they almost look like the same beer. Dark malts, very little difference. Now, you get that sort of dark chocolate, slight coffee, dark fruit figginess sort of aroma there from the Tynt Meadow. And actually, there's a lot more aroma to the Tynt Meadow than there is the Westvleteren 8. In fact, I don't think that's actually the case, because I've had Westvleteren 8 in the past, and it does have an aroma, but I think that this has such a strong aroma to it that it's very difficult to pick anything up from that Westvleteren 8. Really difficult. It almost feels like it hasn't got an aroma, which it has. So that means that this is really, really sort of, got a real aroma to it. So anyway, let's dive in. Yeah, you got a bit of caramel, dark fruits. It is figgy. I've seen it described as having a taste of licorice. I'm not sure I get that from this. Actually, I do. I do. Oh, it really... There's a real taste of licorice in Tynt Meadow's dark ale. Yeah, it's a fruity experience. It's got a real bitterness to it as well. A real bite. But there's a real licoriceness to it. Licoriceness? Is that a word? It is now. Yeah. Now, when I was at Tynt Meadow, if you go to Tynt Meadow, you can't consume there. However, you can taste the beers. Now, what they will do for you is, as part of a tasting there, they'll give you a bottle of Tynt Meadow that's been aged a number of years. And I've done that a couple of times there in the past, because I've been to Tynt Meadow before yesterday. And I think it had been aged 3, 4, 5 years or something like that. And it was like this, but just so much better. It almost felt like it was, well, tasted like it was oak aged. There was a rumminess to it. Yes, the figs, the dark fruit were all there. But I mean, this is also, I should have said that this is a full-bodied drink, but it was really full-bodied. So its ages really, really beautifully. So it's a delicious drink, I've got to say. But aged over 2, 3, 4, 5 years, it just takes it to another level. The ABV doesn't increase massively, because obviously it's just in the bottle, and it does bottle condition, and That does increase the ABV probably by about 0.5%. So it doesn't make a massive difference there, but it really just takes it to another level. And that's why I've got loads of Westvleteren aging down in my cellar, because the same thing happens with them. Now this one is not an aged one. So there are some subtle differences, subtle similarities there in terms of the dark fruit, the chocolatiness, but it's the yeast that makes the real difference between these Belgian beers and this British Trappist ale, because this has a pear sweetness to it as well that that you get from the Belgian ales. So there is a real sort of sweetness to this. So this is fruity, but in a more, I suppose, bitter way. There's not a lot of sweetness to that at all. And the difference will be that yeast, because it's all malts, it's all hops. Yeah, obviously the hops will make a difference as well, but these are both excellent beers. Excellent beers. Doubles are not for everybody's taste. And obviously I don't think you can class this as a double because it's not Belgian, but they're very, very similar. They're very, very similar. And, obviously Tynt Meadow have learned from the other Trappist breweries as well. So you'd expect there to be some common ground. So although the malts and the hops are British, the style, the flavours, you're going to get some similarities there. But I think it is that Belgian yeast, and I think it's Westmalle yeast that's used in Westvleteren. It gives it that fruity sweetness. When you drink a Belgian beer, sometimes you just know. You don't need to look at what's been poured, what's on the label. You just know you're drinking a Belgian beer because of the yeast, and that's the same with a Westvleteren. So this dark, that stem, God, it's annoying. It is full of rich, fruity, dark fruit and fig flavours. It's a nice beer, that is a really nice beer. You can get it online, and your local bottle shop may sell Tynt Meadow as well. Obviously they're not knocking out huge hectolitres a year, but they are having a new fermenter, an extra fermenter installed, so they're obviously going to be ramping up a little bit. They've got a lot of renovation to do around the estate there, and I really hope that the success of Tynt Meadow continues, so the Abbey can be restored all around the grounds, and they can continue to sustain their way of life. But more importantly, from my standpoint, is that they can continue to make really good beers and develop it. They're always refining and working on it, and they've got more of a table beer that they've just recently introduced as well. So I'd expect that over time the range will increase, but it'd just be great to see them be successful, and hopefully a few more people start monking, and we'll see these type of beers being made for a few more centuries. But I'm not going to hold my breath there. But anyway, really good. It's a bitterly cold day. It's the 5th of January 2025. Today's going to be my last day drinking for a few weeks, so I can get myself super fit again. Got some running competitions to prepare for, and I've been doing too much of this over the past few months, as fun as it's been. So it's a nice way to sign off. So I'm going to finish these, and then I am going to move on to the blonde. Cheers. Right, let us move on to the Tynt Meadow Blonde, 5% ABV. I am going to use my Fru Kulch from Cologne. I'm going to use that bottle opener for this because I can. I've got a range of these things. Hofbräu, Duvelorium, Straffe Hendrik. It's all going on. You name it, we've got it. And a mustard jar, Zunfthaus jar from Fruit Culture as well. Yes. Right, so the blonde, I'm not going to compare this with anything else. I think it's fair to say, because it's not going to be using the Belgian yeast like the Westmalle yeasts, it's going to not have that. I should imagine it'll have that fruity sweetness that you get with a lot of the Belgian blondes. But it'll have its own character, I'm sure. So, it looks like a Belgian blonde. Nicely carbonated from conditioning in the bottle, because of course they ferment the beers, but then they do a second fermentation in the bottle. So when they bottle up, extra sugar and yeast is added, which carbonates it whilst it's in the bottle. Pressure builds up, but it also strengthens the ABV as well, and obviously develops the taste profile as well. So anyway, so the Tynt Meadow Blonde. Yeah. And there we go. It is slightly hazy. It is a blonde that is slightly hazy. Looks appealing. And I think a lot of people go into these expecting something to be quite lagery, and obviously it'll have Pilsner malts in it, but then it's not going to be the taste profile of this. Now I believe the blonde uses the exact same ingredients, so the same malts, the same hops, the same yeast as the darker ale that we just sampled before. Obviously the recipe, the quantities, the ratios, they'll all be different, which results in this much blonder beer, which this will be more heavy on the Pilsner malts. Lemony, that is lemon zest. Yeah, it is citrusy. Yeah, really pleasant on the nose, to be fair. But it's all about the taste for me. So it doesn't taste like a Belgian blonde as I would have expected, and I think that's mainly down to that yeast. It's more bitter. It's got a more bitter profile to it. It is actually it's slightly IPA. The hops are prominent in this from start to finish. So straight away you get, it's lemons, but there's a bit of grapefruit there. It's that grapefruit, that slight grapefruit flavour that you can get from a lot of IPAs. That's what I'm getting with this. Lemon and grapefruit, and then it just nicely does it nicely sort of tail off into a different taste profile. I don't know if it does. It's nice, don't get me wrong, this is nice on a warm day, this drink. Bit nutty as well. Yeah, so look, without trying to overanalyze it, the prominent sort of notes that I do get are sort of lemon and grapefruit, really. It's pleasant, it really is, and it's not like the Westvleteren Blonde. I mean, that is got a good bitterness to it, but not like this. It's not like if you've had Lef or any of the well-known Belgian blondes. It's far more savoury. Yeah, really good. But look, they obviously had a decision to make when they were starting up starting to brew beer, as we talked about yesterday. I think there was a temptation to start going down the sort of the Belgian ale route, which is understandable. But I think there was a realisation that market is already pretty well catered for. You know, yes, there's the Trappist beers, but you've got a whole range of the Abbey beers, so on and so forth. They've all got pictures of monks and things like that on the front of them, but they're not Trappist beers. They're not made by monks. They may have used to have been made by monks, but they're certainly not made monks anymore. And some of them never were made by monks. Yeah, I just lost my trail of thought there, to be honest with you. But it's just nice that they decided that actually we're an English Trappist monastery, and therefore we should use English ingredients, which will come with its own distinct flavours. And actually, this has proved popular in Belgium. I think they're shipping quite a lot of their produce over to Belgium, other areas of the world as well. So there is a market for this, and it's understandable. They've done a really good job. Is it my favourite Trappist beer? Probably not. But they've done a really good job with it. They should be proud. Look, I spent an hour and a half driving there and an hour and a half driving back. It's 150 miles away from where I live here. So if Leicestershire is within your reasonable reach, go. Great place. Lovely to go in and see the services within the Abbey itself. Go and have a look around the brewery, having a little bit of a taste. But then obviously you can go into the shop afterwards and buy plenty of Tynt Meadow and Tynt Meadow products, but also small quantities of some of the other Trappist beers that have the ATP signature on them. So yeah, great place to go, and I really recommend that you try it out. It's near to the site of the Battle of Bosworth as well, which I keep meaning to pop in and have a look at, because that's right up my street. But I've not done that yet, so you can make a day of it. Go and have a look at the site of the Battle of Bosworth, although I think a lot of historians dispute that was the actual site, and I think it was a couple of miles away. Anyway, not for this channel. So to your very good health. I'm going to have a bit of a break from booze now. But stay tuned, there will be some more episodes. There'll be plenty of episodes coming out this year. Got quite a few plans. Hope you subscribe, and then you'll get to hear about any new videos that get posted. But until then, to your very good health, and Prost.